Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Girls for Greatness podcast. As always, you guys, it is such an honor to have you here listening in. I am your host, Delia Perry, and this is episode number 153. And today I am honored to have Shelly Heim with me, someone that I know you all will be so enlightened by. Just to give you guys a little bit of a background on Shelly, Shelly has so much wisdom around the topic of health and fitness. She has dedicated her career to helping other women to live healthy, and she is a nutrition and fitness professional with a certification in sports nutrition. She is a Lyn-Genet Plan Health Coach, a fitness instructor, and a hugely successful Beachbody coach for the last 11 years. Shelly is super passionate about helping women to focus on building consistent habits to achieve and sustain optimal health and wellness, and she also provides simple processes to prevent and overcome lifestyle disease. You guys, I cannot wait for you to hear from this amazing, inspiring warrior who is out there really making their own mark in the world in their own unique way. So, Shelly, welcome to the Girls for Greatness podcast.
Thank you, Delia. It's so good to be here. So nice of you to ask me. I feel honored. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So just tell us a little about maybe where you're from, a little about you, and maybe just, I know we're going to dive into a lot of things, but maybe a little bit about your own kind of fitness and nutrition journey and just what that's looked like for you over the years.
Sure. So I've always been into fitness. I was raised in Las Vegas till I was 12 years old. My parents moved to a very small town on the Oregon coast in 1980, and so it was so small, smaller than the school's attendance, total attendance, or student population. There was more there in my junior high than there was in the whole town of the coastal town that we moved to in 1980. So it was a huge adjustment, and then life kind of just took its own trajectory as far as what led me to where I am today. In 1985, unfortunately, my dad died of melanoma, and he was only 38 years old. My mom was also 38 years old at the time of his death, and I was just starting college. So she pretty much, had my brother at home, and it was never remarried, never dated, and her life just kind of slowly declined, her quality of life, I would say, after my dad died. And then, fast forward a few years later, my brother's career took off as a commercial fisherman. I was cutting hair. That was my career of choice at the time. And I actually wanted to get into human resources and social like counseling, therapy type stuff. And that was what I was doing in college when my dad died. And then he died. And it was just like, financially, I couldn't really afford to keep going to school and working full time. So I chose hairstyling because it was a quick, easy, affordable way for me to start earning money quickly. And in hopes I would have probably maybe go back to college at some point, but that never happened. And then, so I basically moved back to the coast after attending beauty school in Eugene, Oregon. And I cut hair, and I got into fitness at that time. I started teaching fitness at like 20 some years old, just early 20s. Ended up buying the salon I was working at a very young age as well. I think I was 21. And so I just kind of dove right into career. I loved health and fitness at that time, more so fitness, but it was just really hard to make money teaching classes, and I had to earn a living. And I actually did love owning salons and doing hair for many years, but eventually that did lead me to burnout quite a bit. I was 60 plus hours a week, behind the chair for pretty much 30 years. And so then I met my husband. We moved to a little bigger town, a little bit north of where I was living and where I had grown up. And then I sold the salon I was at, bought another salon that I just did one chair, just me. Loved it. Probably should have done it a long time ago. And then I wasn't teaching at the time. I took a long break from teaching fitness And I was into my own fitness, but I was kind of just doing the same thing, running the same 4 miles 4 times a week, not getting anywhere. My nutrition was just basically, at that time, I think I still had the mindset of you as long as you worked out, you could eat whatever you wanted. Very social, very loved, my girlfriend's wine weekends and, all of that fun stuff. And then in 2011, actually before that, I guess I was just getting bored with fitness. So I found Beachbody, I found P90X, and I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that it was a challenging program that would give me something to focus on. I didn't know about a business opportunity. I didn't know about the coaching opportunity. I didn't even know there was any other workouts, to be honest. I did P90X for well over a year, day in and day out, got super strong, but I didn't look like those people in the cast when it was all done and said. And so I reached out to a girlfriend on social media who was a Beachbody coach. And I was like, I did P90X for a year and I don't know, but I don't look like those people. And she's like, well, how was your diet? And I was like, just like normal, drink on the weekends and eat all the crap and then get back on track during the week. And she said, well, I'm going to help you clean up your diet. So she basically introduced me to clean eating and Shakeology and got me into a different Beachbody program, which I thrived in, saw amazing results almost immediately after I started to dial in my nutrition and focus on Shakeology, replacing 1 meal a day. And then in 2011, I think that started in 2009, 2011, my mom developed several lifestyle diseases that were really devastating. And she was 64 years old. She had retired 9 years prior to that. And she had gained 10 pounds a year for 9 years. So 90 pounds on a small frame. Eating was terrible, smoking cigarettes, alcohol, lorazepam, value, all the stuff. And she was very stressed. My brother was a commercial fisherman at the time, and he was her life. And every time he went to Alaska to fish, she was a nervous wreck. Needless to say, she developed congestive heart failure, AFib, COPD, sleep apnea, diabetes. I think the only thing she really didn't have was high cholesterol. Her blood pressure was either super, super low or super, super high. So it was a good 8 months of really, really, helping her and treating her, and a big scare. And then unfortunately later that year, right after I enrolled as a Beachbody coach in 2011, she ended up dying of gangrene sepsis because she got an infection that her body was just too weak to fight. And that's when I kind of made it my mission to just like, this all could have been prevented. She could still be with us today, here with us today, had she taken better care of herself, and not just for a short period of time during the time that she was actually diagnosed with all these things. And it just catapulted from there. I just started talking more and more, and I felt so good. Getting myself healthy, releasing an addiction to sugar and processed foods, and really started paying attention to my sleep habits and just overall wellness, which I'd never experienced before. It was always fitness, but never the other components, and never community, never support, never asking people what they were doing. I think, either people were going to Weight Watchers or that was about it. There wasn't a lot of mainstream knowledge about nutrition yet at that point, at least that was so attainable as it is today. And so I just dove into Beachbody, worked really hard, still cut hair 60 hours a week, never, ever intended it to be my full-time income. And then over time, it just kind of, the more consistent I became with working the business, the more gratitudes it brought to my life. And I was becoming just a completely different person with the personal development aspect that the company provides, taking care of ourselves first and foremost before we help other people, be leading by example. That was all just the perfect blend of components that helped me live a stronger and better life. And then in 2014, unfortunately, my brother was lost at sea. on the vessel he was working on, and he left behind a 5-year-old child and a 5-week-year-old baby and a beautiful life and a beautiful wife. And he was truly my best friend. And it was just him and I, since our parents had died, and to lose him as well was pretty tragic. And at that point, I just didn't know really which direction to go. I was like, I just couldn't give any more of my energy to anybody else, which was temporary.
Sure.
But I didn't realize it in that moment. Was going to quit coaching and just cut hair, and I was just a mess. It was the most tragic thing I'd ever
Sure.
been through, losing him. And then I just kind of turned it around, and I got a email. One morning, I had actually filled out my coach cancellation form. As I was writing my brother's eulogy, I got this email that came across, notification that said they were hosting a PIO certification. It's a fitness program that Beachbody has in their platform. And I was very drawn to that. And I just immediately enrolled to this certification. I was like, I need something positive to focus on while I go through this. And the teaching was always a huge passion of mine. So I got certified in PIO, began teaching that year, really, really took my energy and my grief and all of the ickiness from losing Eric and put it into other people, helping other people and spreading that message of health. And that's when my business really took off. And I was able to go from 60 hours a week to 1 day a week cutting hair. And then eventually in 2016, I sold my salon. Still do hair 1 day a week, but health and fitness is really in my focus now, and helping other people. And then I went through started going to perimenopause in my late 40s, and doing everything right, eating all the right foods, and nothing was working. And I was starting to gain weight. And one day I just Googled, is healthy foods making me fat? And that's when I came across the Lyn-Genet Plan, which lowers inflammation through a very specific protocol of testing foods and exercise for inflammation. And it really helped me get through that time in my life, which perimenopause is really truly the hardest time in women's lives to stay fit and to not gain weight and to not make, we go crazy during the time, mentally, emotionally, physically. Everything's changing. It's hard to keep up with, and it's hard to understand. And so I went into that protocol of Lyn-Genet's, and then eventually started training with her. And it took a little over a year for me to get certified with her. It was a very, very hard process, and so much to learn. And there's still so much to learn, but I graduated, and I work. I'm still my own entity, but I do get clients from the Lyn-Genet office, and we all work together as a team. It's a great component to where I'm at now with Beachbody. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, that's awesome, Shelly. I really appreciate you sharing that. And I mean, I so many things that you shared. I think, just the one thing that stands out to me so many times with so many of my guests is just that, your story is such a huge testament to the fact that, we all obviously have our things that we go through, our struggles, and yet, I think it's remarkable that you have been able to take that and turn it around into something positive and something that you're giving back, to others. And that's really what I hope inspires those of you that are listening, too, is that, I say it all the time that, nobody's life is perfect. And that, just because you have struggle, or just because you have things that you go through that are difficult, or trials, or however you want to word it, is really not a reason to give up, on yourself or on what you want out of life and living your best life. And I know that some of you listening in may not be in that stage where you're in perimenopause or are on that older cusp end of where you're at. But if you're not, you're going to reach it someday, and whether you like it or not. But I think, that's a topic that I haven't really honed in on. I mean, I've honed in on some things with nutrition, on intuitive eating, on just other aspects of fitness with some of my guests, but focusing in on that piece, which personally, is really fascinating to me because I'm smack dab in the middle of it myself. So I definitely can relate to that. But I'm curious for you, like before we kind of dive into maybe some of your recommendations, what for you maybe has just been the greatest struggle in terms of maybe your mindset and just what you've personally went through in those ups and downs, and just maybe even as of late, like maybe in the last 2 or 3 years since the pandemic, or however you want to look at it.
Well, a lot, yeah, a lot's changed. I do, thanks to Beachbody and all the personal development that I've done, I do truly believe that everything is figure outable. Like no matter where you're at, my menopause or perimenopause journey is going to be different from the next person. But educating yourself, applying what you're learning based on what you're going through, you can pretty much be your own experiment, your own scientist, and really get down to the nitty gritty depending on how far you want to go. And it just takes patience. I think, that one of the biggest things that I've overcome in the last few years is understanding that it's not, there's just no quick fix. Like, and if you implement one thing in your menopause journey, like lowering your inflammation, just understand that it's not going to happen overnight. And you've got to give things a chance to work and take your time. And it's okay to like take a few deep breaths and just go, you know what, I'm not going to change anything for a week. Let me implement this and see if it works, or 2 weeks or whatever it is. Patience and consistency are the two biggest mindset strengths I think that I've developed through all of the tragic events that I've gone through, all of the loss, all of the learning. Patience and consistency, and just putting one foot in front of the other, one step at a time. Through the pandemic, I take a lot of pride in the fact that my nutrition is very diligent. I never have to worry about my workouts. Like that, those are non-negotiable. They're just intrinsic goals at this point, intrinsic things I do every single day. But I did incorporate a little bit more alcohol when going through the pandemic, and I had taken long breaks from time to time with alcohol, always knowing in the back of my head that, or right on the cusp of my conscious mind was that, you know what, I do struggle with moderation. I have to be really careful with alcohol, and a long line of alcoholism in both sides of my family, and so on and so forth. So I took long breaks over several times over the years, always felt amazing. Every time I went back to drinking, the 1 or 2 glasses of wine per week would turn into 1 or 2 glasses of wine per night, which could lead to the whole bottle. And there was a time right before my brother died that my husband and I both abstained from drinking for almost 2 years. And we were just in this really good place. And then Eric died, and I drank. I like caved in. I just couldn't handle it. Ryan did not, but I did. And I regret that greatly, but it was also lots of lessons in there for me. And I always try to look at the positive side of regret, or making a decision that didn't exactly go in a positive direction that we've made in our lives. And so when the pandemic came, and it was like daily drinking, and it was turning into more, and everybody seemed to be doing it, so you could justify it, and all the games you play with yourself. And then finally one day, in fact, I was just reading today, when you're kind of done with something, you're kind of done, and sometimes people can't make those changes until they're so sick and tired of where they've been and what's happened because of where they're at, that they just have to draw the line in the sand. And that's what happened to me with sugar. That's what happened with me with processed foods. And that's what's happened to me with alcohol. I just got so sick of the constant conversation I had with myself every day. Should I drink? Shouldn't I drink? What should I drink? How much should I drink? Regret and shame if I drank more than I intended, which was probably always a given. Guilt and shame if I drank when I said I wasn't going to that morning, and 5 o'clock rolled around and I was opening up a bottle of wine as I was cooking dinner. And so I just drew the line in the sand. And that was over 7 months ago. I think I'm on day 223 now of not drinking. And there were some things that were really profound. And because of the Lyn-Genet plan, I know how to test and really pay attention to my body. Sure. And I also at the time got help right before then with hormone replacement therapy, because I was suffering from 30 to 40 intense hot flashes per day for almost 2 years. And I just kept thinking it would get better, and it never did. And I tried all the things. And so when I went on HRT, I gave it a very good test, and I stopped drinking at the time as well. And the first night I slept like a baby. So combination HRT, no wine. Second night, same thing, slept like a baby. After about 3 weeks, I added in 1 glass of wine after starting HRT. And that night I didn't sleep. So I just said no more. Like, I know now that it's not just hormones. My hot flashes are gone. It is alcohol. And so I quit. And right now, to this day, like right now in this moment, I have no desire to drink again. There's absolutely no reason, but I'm also human. And so it's not like, it's just a journey that I deal with every day. A lot of good things that came into my life because of abstaining this time around. I actually used tools to help me, meditation, which was really hard at first. But it's gotten easier now to the point where, like, if I don't do my morning meditation, I am lost throughout the rest of the day. And I'm up to like 26 minutes from 7. Awesome. It was all I could handle before. So it's great. Getting my hands on anything I could read as far as people who've already been successful in abstaining from alcohol, authors, podcasts, any tools I could get my hand on. And I just kind of immersed myself in that no alcohol world, alcohol-free world. No, I didn't do AA. I think there's a lot of ways to abstain safely and effectively these days without having to do a 12-step program if that's not your thing. And I believe wholeheartedly that there's this middle area of drinking, either complete abstinence to full-blown rock bottom alcoholics, to where a lot of us women are, where we fall into this gray area. With, a lot of people refer to it as gray area drinking, and we're successful and we are productive women, or even men, and we work out every day and we are healthy, but we have this struggle within us when it comes to alcohol that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. So. I love that. Yes. Resonate with so much of that. And I have had a few guests on that have talked about that. And I personally, have shared my own journey, especially coming out of the pandemic. I mean, much the same. That part of my life really picked up. And, I took a break, had to reach a point where I just, needed to reevaluate. And, I may not be where you are, but I will say that one of the things that has stuck with me through that, and I think about a lot and I try and be mindful of, is that when you do a test like that, or when you do start removing things or whatnot, and you develop a knowledge of how you feel, you can't just unknow that. You that's something that's with you then. And I can't, as much as I want to be like, oh yeah, I'm all right. I know, when I'm at my best and when I'm not. And it's making those choices that are in alignment with that, like you said, on a consistent basis. And it's not the same journey for everyone. It's so much about being patient with yourself. But I think you just bring up a really great point in that whole story, is that, if you're questioning or you have, these thoughts around maybe there's some area of your life that you feel is off balance or that you don't have a handle of, I think it's really important to slow down enough and to take that time to kind of, like you said, be your own experiment.
Yeah, it's a good feeling. And like you said, it does go back to patience,
Mm-hmm.
and I had the fears, and
Yeah.
I had abstained for almost 2 years at one point. So I knew the benefits of not drinking, but you tend to start to look at what you're going to have to give up and lose by quitting something. For me, a big thing was, it was summertime. My last drink was on July 31st. We don't get great summers all
Right.
the time
Right.
on the Oregon coast.
Right.
So one of my favorite things in life was to sit in the backyard, right before dinner for a couple hours with my husband and have a few drinks and talk about our day, our life, our dreams, whatever. And I wasn't going to have that anymore. I mean, I could still have it with kombucha, but it did, those things, those
Right.
feelings where you just know they're not going to feel the same. Vacations, social events, awkward social events, all of those things, fears popped into my head, and they still do. Summer's coming again. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I want to get a fire pit out there. And I'm
Right.
like, but I'm not going to be able to have a glass of wine, but it's okay. Like
Yeah.
I know why I am going to be okay not having a glass of wine or two or three or four. And it's just making those course corrections in your mindset that it's okay, telling yourself it's okay.
Yeah.
Still struggle the first 5 minutes of sitting at a restaurant when the
Right.
waiter comes to take everybody's drink order,
Yep.
and then once the 5 minutes is gone, I don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah.
It's just those initial hard moments, and recognizing them and really, really giving yourself the chance to go, you know what, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that there's support out there too. Like, I usually, when I have a struggle of my own, what I do is I immediately put something out, ask questions on social media. Do you struggle with this too? I'm going to start a support group, and it's totally free. And it's just connecting with other women
Right.
who face the same things I do. And then together we can journey through that, share our journeys and support each other. And it makes all the difference in the world. It doesn't have to be, a big, broad wellness group, so to speak. It's
Yeah.
just, let's just try to quit drinking for
Yeah.
30 days and see what
Yeah.
happens.
That's a great point. That's a great point. You bring up a good point about support. I totally agree. Could not agree more. Um, I'm curious, what are some of the things that you've noticed just maybe over the years? I know there's been many years, and you've done a lot of different things in the realms of coaching and being an instructor and now with Lyn-Genet. But what are some of the things that you can say are maybe, I don't want to say common themes, but just things that you've seen in women, and just maybe even just in the last, few years? Like, what do you think are the biggest obstacles that a lot of women are faced with when it comes to their overall wellness?
Well, especially since the pandemic, I think, and even before that, we've been thrown into social media. I mean, it's unavoidable. Sure, you can avoid it to a certain point, but we all have those curiosities
Right.
about what each other's doing, so on and so forth. It's a great way to connect. It's a great way to learn, but it also comes with a lot of downfall, which is you can get really caught up in comparing. And you got to be careful with that, because it can, just zap completely all the joy out of your world. Thinking you're not good enough and comparing yourself to others, and you should be there because she's there, and you should have this. And I think what happens too is it blocks a lot of our own ability to make good decisions for us wholeheartedly. Like, I mean, it could be anything from, I'm remodeling our kitchen. We're remodeling our kitchen right now. And if I get too caught up in other people's ideas and tastes, and I lose my own sense of taste, what I like, and it's too many decisions at that point too. Like, I go to Home Depot and I'm looking at dishwashers. Why can't you show me five? Why do you have to show me 5,000?
Right.
So simplifying things, staying in your own lane, really thinking about what you want. Even goes back to intuitive eating. Like,
Mm.
your gut knows, your heart knows what's best for you. And when we're flooded with other people's social media and highlight reels, we can really lose sight of what we love, what we want, what colors we want in our kitchen or in our home, or what look good on us. Or, just because she is doing that and it's working for her doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. And it's easy to just jump on every single thing somebody else is doing. And before you know it, you've got 10 different things from 10 different people, and you don't know which direction to go. So I think it's really important to take
Yeah.
breaks and get outside and listen to your own voice and your own heart, and only follow people who bring you joy and lift you up and have similarities to you, not somebody who's going to make you feel less than you are.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's funny that you actually brought that up, because that was one of my questions, was about how this whole idea of comparison, because it's really, really tough in our day and age to not do that. I mean, I feel like part of it is human nature, but I also think that we kid ourselves if we think that we don't have some control over that, we can direct our attention in the direction that we want it to go. And we can put our energy into the things that we want to put our energy into.
Yeah.
Like, what are some of the things that you do to kind of combat that? Because I know in the fitness world, especially, that is really easy to get sucked into.
Yeah, it is. When we went into lockdown, I was fortunate that I was already teaching virtual fitness. So I really jumped into that deeper, did a lot,
Mhm.
did basically let anybody in who needed fitness for free. They didn't like my classes or my format. I had Beachbody on demand, free aspects of that to help people with. But, I got kind of caught up too at that time. And of course, I started following a lot of instructors, and a lot of PIO was released from Beachbody as far as the live format. So I had to find another format to teach. And thankfully I did. But it was really easy to jump in that. I was already in the bandwagon. It was working for me. But then, oh my goodness, people came into this virtual world of fitness and made it even better and a little bit more complicated. And I felt like if I wasn't doing this format and that format and getting on YouTube and promoting and blah, 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 it was like I was going to be just lost in the shuffle. There was so much competition
Mm.
and so many people competing for the spot, those highlight spots on social media and Instagram and Facebook. And I just had to back off. I was like, you know what? I love teaching Facebook live for my virtual fitness. I don't want to do all the
Mhm.
technical stuff for YouTube and different camera angles. And why am I trying to reinvent the wheel for me?
Mhm.
So, there's also I think some brutal ego lessons that we have to learn. It is very
It's
competitive
true.
out there. And so I just teach my virtual fitness. I think I'm not trying to compete with anybody. I don't have, I had to really ask myself, does this make my heart happy? Like,
Mm.
does it to be teaching 5 to 6 times a week for very little money, and all the competition and constant daily promotion when I've got other things I love as well
Sure.
that bring me more income and as much joy. So, finding your priorities. And one thing I really had to do was just kind of walk away from it for a minute. Like, I love to surf. I just
Mm.
had to get out in the ocean. I had to be on the beach more. I had to get out of the house. I had to really, all those things can fuel you up so much and give you more clarity and focus on what you truly want. But you've got to step away from that computer and from the phone and your device and start thinking about what you truly want. And and I think I have found good balance. I'm teaching 1 day a week now.
Yeah.
And I have more time to concentrate on my own fitness, which is really important to me right now. And so it's kind of a win-win, and I'm still really happy with that
That's
decision,
great.
because it's hard out there. It's
It
very
is.
hard. And I'm trying to sell fitness as well, not my
Right.
own,
Right.
so it's
Right. Yeah.
there's that
No.
aspect.
Yeah, that's great. I know. I think that's so wise. And I don't know about you, Shelly, but I feel like, and I've talked about this on here before too, but I feel like my mindset around a lot of those things has shifted greatly as I've gotten older. I feel like I'm not the same, maybe attention to certain things as I was even, 5, 6 years ago. I feel like, we gain wisdom and we gain, if we can slow down long enough to really, like you said, hone in on what's important to us and what we value, that makes some of those other decisions a lot easier. I mean, I feel like there are still moments where I, find myself maybe comparing or find myself in that headspace that I know is not healthy. But I feel like it's a lot less than it ever has been, because I feel like I'm, more secure in where I'm going, who I am, what's important to me. And quite frankly, and I've said this on here before too, I could care less if that is in alignment with the way someone else is doing it, because I know for me, that's what works. And, and I'll shift it if it starts to not work and I, discover something that's better. But I feel like, as women, we constantly are feeling like we have to apologize because, we're not doing it this way, or we don't look this way, or we didn't do things this way, or, it's just, I feel like that's just a huge part of what we have to get over.
Yeah. And thank gosh, what that comes with getting older. And
Right.
it's a huge relief to be able to release some of that
Right.
mindset and the need or the want or the thinking that we have to be like other people to be successful or to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I still struggle with it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
especially with Beachbody, I'm an older coach. Although I've been around a long time, what can happen when I start comparing to other coaches, there's a lot of amazing success in Beachbody, way more
Mm-hmm.
than what I've seen. But I also have to be okay with where I'm at and what I'm willing to give and how hard I'm willing to work. And there's been times where I call it jump. I've been a jumper where I jump to this training and this process and that process, but never really feeling like one is working because I'm trying to do so many. And knowing that, what, it's okay to do things simple and to do
Mm-hmm.
things my way, and to be okay with not being in the top 200. Like it's okay. I'm still successful, and I can
Yeah.
use parts of my career as vessels to get me things that I want and need. I don't have to be um, trying to keep up with everybody else and feeling inadequate, because what can happen is at that point, then you're paralyzed and you do
Mm-hmm.
nothing
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to either do too much or do something that isn't right for you, or spend thousands of dollars on an event or a training and thinking you're going to come home and it's going to, be the one thing that catapults your business to earn you another 80 grand a year. And you're right back in the same situation you were. Like that,
Right.
that's the answers aren't there. You've got to find your answers within yourself, how hard you're willing to work, what your work ethic is, what your dreams are, what you really want, what's important to keep you moving forward in those positive directions
Yeah.
to get you what you really need.
Yeah. I totally agree. Really good points. Um, so before I ask my last two questions, I did want to ask, what, and I'm kind of circling back here, but what you would recommend, what would be your top 3 things that you would say are, I should say, just really important when it comes to women and living, their best life, and I guess just keeping their optimal health? Like, what are the first 3 things that probably come to mind for you?
nutrition, number one, first and foremost, in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion. Um, moving your body, but you don't have to do marathons. It's not about being completely extreme
Mm-hmm.
in fitness. In fact, we're seeing now, especially as we get older, those of us getting older, that less is almost more.
Mm-hmm.
We can't keep taxing our adrenals, and
True.
that disrupts hormones, and that can make a lot of things worse that you're already perhaps facing. So nutrition, moving your body, in a way that is comfortable and
Right.
safe and not crazy. Now, if you can do crazy, do crazy, but you got to know if you
Right.
can do
Right.
that before you jump
Right.
right in. And then I think, you know, first, and then working on like what's going on the inside, your heart, your
Mm,
soul, heart storming, dreaming. Don't forget to dream. All that mindset work. And if I could add a fourth one, it would be community,
mm,
finding support virtually or in person or whatever it is. We all want, we thrive with connection, even though sometimes a lot of us avoid it, especially since the pandemic.
right.
It is really, really important.
So true. Those are all great. Those are all great. Thanks. Okay. So my final two questions and wrap up here. What are three words that you would use to describe yourself in terms of just saying three words that best describe who you really and truly are?
Let's see, I'm very consistent
Mm-hmm.
in and very, I would say disciplined,
Mm-hmm.
and I am very generous
Mm,
with my my knowledge and
mm,
my willingness. I mean, I still run a free 7-day group,
mm,
detox group, that is out of this world every single month, that
mm.
is life changing for many people. So just being generous,
Yeah.
giving a lot, serving others, leading by
Mm,
example, and never ever, I would much rather serve than have the intention of just earning a
right.
buck off somebody,
Right.
you know.
That's beautiful. No, I can totally see that. And my last question, how do you embody greatness in your own life?
I would say daily routine at
Mm,
this point.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's so easy to get sidetracked and distracted. And, um, especially when we're faced with so many decisions every single day and so much information coming at us every day, staying grounded and just, yeah,
Mm,
um, on
it's
staying on that
important.
path of just really being, um, okay with who you are. And I just lost my train of thought.
No, yeah, no, you're great. You're great. No, you guys, I've known Shelly a while from my days as a Beachbody coach, and she, as you can hear, I know, and maybe watch if you're watching that, she definitely knows her stuff, and she's so disciplined and so consistent. Has been someone that I've admired always, and what she's done, and her work ethic, and just who she is, and I know I'll have everything linked up, obviously, in the show notes as to how you can check out her social media, which is phenomenal, and her website. But Shelly, just thank you so much for being here. This was really fun. And I just love the work that you're doing. And you're just such an inspiration to me and to so many. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Delia. Have a wonderful day. And
Yes.
yes, reach out anytime. My inbox is open and I answer promptly.
Awesome.